Welcome to America's Fractured Politics again. I'm pleased to welcome today David Pepper. David is probably one of the most incisive analysts of national politics, but in particular of Ohio politics. David has written Laboratories of Autocracy and Saving Democracy, both of which I think are great reads, and I recommend them highly. So with that, I'm glad to have David on. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Good to have you. Let me dive into a few questions that I had on my mind. What do you think the best opportunity is for Democrats to turn things around and make a successful 2026?
I think 26 is the opportunity to get the vote out in a way because of what they're doing, because of the economics, because of the costs, because of the healthcare cuts, that I think we can, just like we did in '06, just like we did in 18, overcome even the things they throw at us. That has to be our mindset. That has to be our attitude. If we do the opposite, then we lose in a way that I worry that we'll be stuck with for years and worse. So yes, we have to do that, and I think we can do that.
Um, on that note, what I've written extensively about what the Democrats could and should do, and I don't know that anybody's listening, but I've got contacts in the party, and some of them do listen, and some of them basically say that you're not going to change it because the old guard is the old guard. But from your perspective, what should the Democrats be doing right now that they're not doing?
I don't think I'd say they're not doing it, but I think that messaging very strong, which I think they're trying to do. Um, but I'd say most importantly is really getting going for 26 at this point. Take the energy from the protests and the energy from the town hall meetings and use it to really run a 50 state running everywhere strategy on message about everything from, again, Medicaid, tariffs, you name it. Don't just view this as your standard, hey, we care about 5 certain Senate races and 15 certain House races, as if that's how you save democracy. Have the Texas Republicans who just voted for that map, the state house Republicans, see that they have an opponent and have that opponent run hard on not just gerrymandering, but the fact that Texas Governor Abbott and those state reps are destroying public schools. I just think we have to get into a much bigger mindset. And in case this sounds crazy, this is what Karl Rove did after '08 to win back America in 2010. He went to bat and went to the ground in state houses across the country, including ones he had just lost, and they ran in more places. This is what Howard Dean did when Bush got reelected. I think we have to have that attitude. So, yes, we should play defense in blue states. I like what Gavin Newsom's doing, but we need to go on offense where they're doing most of the damage, and that's in the red states and often in the red parts of those states.
What states do you think are feasible locations for a fight against Texas, basically by doing what California is doing right now? What other states provide good options?
In terms of the actual districting process, there unfortunately they have more states they can mess with than
That's
we
true.
can, and that's unfortunate. So the math isn't great. I think will pick up a few more districts in some other states, but I also think there still are a lot of districts that we can win if they have a bad year, which I think they will have. Um, but what I would say is, I think we have these statewide races, we have state house races, and we should no longer accept the business as usual that we leave a bunch of districts uncontested. Here's a great example. Right now, to their great credit, there is a candidate in every single district in Virginia right now. My hope is the Virginia election this November. Normally in all states, we leave dozens of districts uncontested. I love that in Virginia, like North Carolina 2 years ago, they are running in every district. North Carolina ran in all but two. And my hope is a sweeping win in Virginia sends a signal. When we run everywhere, we do better. We win at the top of the ticket with some great candidates. We sweep the House and Senate of these states. And that's and my hope is that we have a big year in Virginia, and then we roll forward and have the same approach. I want Republicans in every corner of America to have to defend destroying public education, cutting Medicaid, cutting SNAP, defending tariffs, defending that Trump, just took 10% of Intel, for God's sakes. We need to go on offense, and I think Virginia's a good example. Then we keep right
I
on
think you're
rolling.
right. I live in Virginia, and I'm close to a lot of people in the Democratic Party. And I think one of the big differences here is that we have a vital party, as contrasted with, say, Florida, which is a really moribund party. This
Yeah.
this this state has a very strong Democratic Party, and it recruits really good candidates. And Northern Virginia is very populous, and the nexus of the electorate is becoming more and more Northern Virginia. And so you have an opportunity there to sweep a lot of districts in the north, overcoming what goes on in South Side, which is what we call Southern Virginia here, and to win the way you described, a victory that would send a message that, you know what, if you fight back and if you do what we did here, you can win. So I agree with you. I think we can probably do the
Yeah.
same thing here in Virginia and create a template for the rest of the country. Let's switch to foreign policy for a second. How long do you think Trump can continue letting Putin slow walk these Ukraine talks?
I mean, I hate to say it, as long as he wants. I just don't think he'll do whatever. I think he'll do what Putin says to do. I mean, I don't mean to be too crass about it, but I don't think the American people. I don't think there's enough political pressure on that. I don't think Republicans in the Senate or House have the backbone to do anything. So I think that what we've seen the last 6 months, the increased attacks, Trump said there had to be a ceasefire, it would be really problematic, and he walks out of Alaska with no ceasefire, and he doesn't seem to care. He walks out of Alaska saying we're going to have talks with Zelensky and Putin, and now he's already walking that back. I think that he is clearly compromised on Russia, and I just don't have much. The only thing that make a difference is if Europe really started pushing hard. I just don't see. Um, I just don't see him doing anything that, in the end, Putin doesn't give him a green light on. So if Putin gets worried about the economy or military losses, then yeah, sure, that might change the conversation, but it's certainly not going to be changed because of anything Trump does.
He has been throwing stuff at us at just an epic rate the last week or so. It's just become almost impossible to keep up with, which is a strategy. Um, throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and continue to flood the zone. Um, what do you think is prompting that? Is that just Trump being Trump, or is it this in response to his panic over Epstein?
I've gotten worried that we have wrongly framed the last month. Everything's a distraction because of Epstein. Actually, as bad as Epstein is, and we should get the truth, I worry that Epstein has been a distraction for us as they've had the most aggressive month yet, August of 25, in attacking democracy. And we've some people at least have said, "Oh, this is a distraction from Epstein." No, actually, National Guard troops and rigging the elections in Texas and the Smithsonian stuff, that's not a distraction from something else. That's like literally that's the steps that go to
Exactly
autocracy,
right.
and we should be talking about those and to pivot to. And so that recess delay might, I hope it didn't, but if it took the heat off on Epstein, hopefully we can get attention back to that. It's pretty awful and it's terrible politics for Trump, but the rest of this stuff is truly, truly. Heather Cox Richardson wrote it, and I agree. This August, I think down the road, if we don't stop this, August of 25 will be looked back on as a pivotal month where truly like big steps away from democracy played out. Again, eliminating independent data tracking on the economy through the BLS, National Guard troops, governors complying, including from Ohio, shamefully by our governor. The beginning of the rigging of congressional districts to avoid a loss that would otherwise happen in the House elections. It's been a very, very dark month. And I think part of it may be that Trump is panicking for a lot of reasons, Epstein and poll numbers and the signs of bad economics. But I also think it's all directly in line with if you have a plan to subvert democracy, this is what you do, and this is what they are doing.
It is what they're doing, and I agree with you. I mean, I live outside of Washington, and I've been downtown several times, and a couple of restaurateurs that I know very well told me that business is horrible. that they're losing money hand over fist because people aren't coming downtown anymore. The intimidation factor is tremendous. We had a situation the other day here where a bunch of people surrounded some ICE agents who were trying to arrest a guy and prevented the arrest. This is only going to get worse. And in a sense, that's good because it'll probably force them to rethink what they're doing in other places. But, why isn't he sending National Guard troops to Memphis or Nashville or New Orleans or Shreveport or any of the other red state cities that are having problems? Why is it it's only the blue states? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. We know why, of course. But what
Yeah.
what what happens if this continues in city after city after city? Do people rise up or are they just going to continue to take it?
I mean, I honestly think right now there could be some wins at the lower court levels. As we talked about, there was an exciting win just now in Utah. I get more worried at the appellate and highest courts. And so when I say that, I think it is going to come down to the people. It's going to come to I love that people are kind of standing up publicly and putting enough pressure on some of these guardsmen and others to just skedaddle because there's too many or ICE agents. Um, I think it's going to be the strength of the people in the end, both now and also gearing up for elections, that is in the end the best hope by far. Maybe courts will slow things down. And by the way, every month of delay in some of these court cases is important. Everything that slows down the damage before we get to November 26th is important. But this is going to be the people are either going to step up and save the day or the other side's going to win. I think that's very, very clear. I've watched the Supreme Court now for long enough in the last couple of years. Not only is the Supreme Court not putting on the brakes, the Supreme Court is providing essentially a sort of a map or instruction manual of what Trump can get away with. The immunity decision, it wasn't just terrible on its own right. It basically told Trump, hey, if you want to do really bad things and be immune for it, here's what you can do and here's what you shouldn't do. So I really do think that people through protest, through other actions, rolling into recruiting and supporting candidates at all levels, everywhere. I think that's the thing that saves us. And if it doesn't happen, I think that's the final sort of check, is that the people say enough. I look in admiration in recent years. There have been moments in other countries, we've seen this, where we have massive protests in other countries over things happening that were less blatantly obvious than what's happening in America right now. And we need to find it within ourselves to do the same thing here. Like a level of response that is so big that it's somewhat shocking.
It's a problem, I think, and from my perspective, because so many Americans are so stretched. There are people working 2 and 3 jobs, and they just don't have the wherewithal to get out into the streets. And I think that this has been, I think, capitalized on effectively. I think they know that there are very few people that have the ability to get out and stay out. And that's really what makes it happen. I mean, what happened in Poland, what happened in Brazil, people came out on the streets and they didn't leave. And I don't see that happening here. What do you think?
I mean, I think when I see some of what we're seeing I got to give credit. People who are seeing someone being harassed
Yeah.
are stepping up and kind of yelling at and taping the ICE agent. So I think it could be getting to a point where people will start to do that and say, and by the way, for the campaign's sake, I think focusing on the issues you're talking about is really important. The high costs, the 2 jobs, the wage stagnation in a lot of states, growing unemployment, which I think we're going to see. So I think as a political matter, that stuff actually are often the topics that we should focus on to win the elections. But I do think there is, I hope, especially the National Guard and the ICE raids. I mean, it's actually kind of incredible that for Donald Trump, he went into his presidency above water on immigration, but the thuggishness and lawlessness and brute force of the deportation policy, he's even underwater there. So I do think they are starting to really step on third rails of multiple issues. And my hope is that animates people to come out more and more and more, even though I think what you're saying is true. I also think that the problem is we are, as Americans, we just assume we wouldn't lose our democracy. That doesn't happen here. And I think those Europeans have more recent memories, especially Eastern Europe, of not having democracy. So I don't think they take it for granted in the way that we do. When there's a trouble sign, they see it more clearly than we do. So I think on our side, I think it's still the attitude, well, we're the United States. Like, it can't be that bad. There's no way that would happen. Even though, again, August alone, the sequence of steps that we're talking about are, they're exactly what you saw in Hungary that led to Orban being where he is today. In some cases, even more so, in National Guard troops in cities. So my hope is people see it clearly, and those of us who know how bad it is need to make sure that's clear and plain. And obviously, I know you do that, I do that, and a lot of others are doing that as well.
Um, we're like the frogs in boiling water. Well, we don't see this coming until we're boiled to death. And there's just a sense, I think, that, people say this is Trump being Trump, but they don't realize what you described, and that is that the month of August has seen a tremendous amount of change, all for the worse, and it's happening at a rate that people can't keep up with. And I think people do need to keep up with it and ignore Epstein for the time being and let that work its way through, so that we have the opportunity to point out what he's doing. We've got the possibility that Powell is going to cave and finally lower interest rates next month. He's been sending signals that he will. We've also got these tariffs that are going to kick in a meaningful way fairly soon and increase prices. Now, Trump promised to lower prices. Um, how much effect do you think that will have going down the road toward the elections? Do you think that people will respond to the higher prices and to what could be an inflationary economy, or is it just going to be one more thing that people just absorb?
I think high price. I mean, I think high prices is why Joe Biden
Yeah.
lost. I don't think there was some mandate for Trump. I think high prices and an unpopular president in the last 5 years have cost almost every incumbent elections around the world. And I think Trump's in real danger of that. I mean, I think the thing that he is still most, uh, disapproved on is that people not only don't think prices have gone down, but they don't even think he's been trying to lower them. And tariffs have now become a dirty word. I mean, Joe Biden, at least, I think there was a sense that he wasn't trying to hike prices. But people in America, I think, see tariffs in their mind. Tariffs mean high prices. So they've seen a president now for 6 months affirmatively raising prices, and then they're seeing that price increase on everything from what they're dealing with in the grocery store. Healthcare costs, I think, are going to rise in different ways. So I think that it's a very bad issue for Trump. And I think it's a very bad issue. Republicans, all 24, talked about how they were going to deal with this. And now, like in Ohio, we have a Senator, John Husted. He hasn't said a word about the tariffs. He's going along with all of it. I think he's going to have to be the one now playing defense against the fact that prices are going up in all sorts of ways and much higher in certain places that really squeeze people. So, no, I think it's a real problem for Trump and the Republican Party that the prices are going up and the people really feel that pinch.
Any final thoughts?
Um, just to tell people, listen, the lesson from history is that this is not unique to us. Every generation has been in the struggle we're in now. We're not the first generation that didn't have to worry about the state of our democracy, even though I think people thought we were. We were somehow post Voting Rights Act, post Warren Court. We were the first generation that, by golly, democracy's fine, nothing to worry about. Turns out that was false. And if you look at history, it was clearly false because that's never been the case. So I take inspiration from the fact that we're in the same battle that we've always been in. But even better, the reason, at least for a short time, that we thought the battle was over was because our forebears were able to overcome so much and actually overcome so much more than we still today have to overcome. John Lewis going over that bridge, suffragists, abolitionists, all had to overcome more threat, more violence, more lawlessness than even we face today. So I know what we've talked about today, Mark, is quite heavy and quite sobering. The truth is, we've simply grabbed the baton from past generations who got us to where we are. And I think if we charge forward with that baton, especially in the next 2 years, we can minimize the damage, win in 26, and put the brakes on the most damage, and then charge forward and make sure we make the reforms so it never happens again. So yes, it's a sobering time. There's a lot of reason to be hopeless. They want us to be hopeless. Don't let that happen to you. Keep moving forward. Run everywhere, whether it's Virginia this year or Texas and Ohio next year, and let's end this nightmare by November of 26, and then charge forward after that.
Those of you who are thinking, no,
Thanks
my
for having me
pleasure.
on.
Those of you who are thinking of running, run. We need more candidates. We need more good candidates, and we need candidates who know how to speak to the people. So if you can do that, and you want to do that, and you have the wherewithal to do it, do it. We fought a civil war that cost nearly 1 million casualties and killed hundreds of thousands of people. If we can survive that, we can survive Trump. So that's my final thought. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a tremendous pleasure.
Absolutely.
Your observations are incredibly welcome, and we'll hope to do it again someday. Thanks a lot.